Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in the 10-minute Bible lesson. We appreciate it a whole bunch. And you know what? We're looking in the book of Samuel, and we're finding out that the children of Israel are wanting a king. Yeah, they came to Samuel and they said, well, we want a king. I don't know if you remember in our last video, we talked about how they came to Samuel and said, we don't, your sons are not very good judges. They're taking bribes. We want a king. And that's kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about today. But let me ask you, they just said, hey, we don't have a king. We don't have a king. Is that true? I mean, is that really true? Did they not have a king? I'm thinking they really did have a king. They had a great king. Who was their king? Their king was God. That's who their king was. I don't even think they knew it. You know what? Samuel was angry about it. He got mad about it. It displeased him. And I think somehow in my mind, I'm thinking that Samuel was like, he was mad because that's how they felt, that God wasn't their king or something. And it kind of aggravated them. And then God spoke to Samuel. And here's what God said. And this was in 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 7. And the Lord said to Samuel, listen to this, heed the voice of the people in all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. And I thought that was interesting. So that was probably why Samuel was upset. So God told Samuel, I want you to tell the people what it's going to be like for them to have a king. I want you to explain to them what the behavior of the king will be. You go ahead and let them know what it's going to be like, and just go ahead and Samuel did. Here's what he told them. He said, when you get a king, he's going to take your sons. He's going to put them in the army and send them to war. And then he's going to take your daughters and make them cooks. Yeah, that's what he was telling them. And then he said, you know what? If he wants some of your fields, he'll take your fields and he'll give them to his friends. And then he'll take a tenth of all of your produce and all of your crop, and he'll use it for himself. And he's telling them and explaining them, and listen, that's what it's going to be like when you have a king. What do you think they said when Samuel explained all of that to them? Well, can you take a guess and think of what they said? Well, let's read about it. And that's in 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 19 and 20. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel. And they said, no, but we will have a king over us, that we also may be like all the other nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. That's what they said to Samuel, so it didn't matter. All of that, I don't know. It seems so funny, we think we get aggravated at our kids for behaving, and in some ways, sometimes we act much worse than they did. So it didn't matter what Samuel said. It's just a flaw in us human beings. It's kind of like we want what we don't have, or we want what somebody else has. You remember your kids, if they come to you and they say, well, listen, Johnny has one and Susie has one. Why can't I have one? And of course, we just dismiss that and we say, no, you're not going to get it. But that's kind of how we are. We're like that. And listen, they had already made up their mind, and all the facts that Samuel gave to the children of Israel, it didn't make any difference. None at all. And you know what? It's kind of disappointing. I'm disappointed. Let me ask this question. Do we really want to be like everybody else? I'm thinking, no. Jesus didn't want his people to be like everybody else. He said that you are the salt of the earth. And then he said, you're the light of the world. And I'm thinking that if that's the case, how in the world could we be salt and light if we're like everyone else? And that's kind of what was going on. They wanted to have a king. Now, the scripture tells us that there was a man of great power, and he was from the tribe of Benjamin. And this man's name was Kish, K-I-S-H, Kish. And his father's name was Abiel. And it says this in the scripture about Kish's son. Let me read it to you. And it's in 1 Samuel chapter 9, verse 2. And he had a choice and handsome son, whose name was Saul. There was not a more handsome person than he among the children of Israel. From his shoulders upward, he was taller than any of the people. So that's something, isn't it? I have to ask you, how would, I'm sorry for laughing, but how would you like to be the best looking person? You would be better looking than all other people. I mean, all the others. Or maybe you'd be taller and you'd look down on everyone. How would you like that? You think that would be really something? Because it seems like, I mean, I'm like that. Why couldn't I be born 6'2" instead of 5'8" or 5'9"? So, I mean, we're never happy the way we are. You know what? I don't think it's necessarily a blessing to be a really, really good-looking woman or a really, really good-looking man. It could be a curse, I think, in a way. So you got to be careful. Well, Saul, that was Saul. Saul was the son of Kish, and that's the way he was. Now, listen, Saul's father, Kish, he got his donkeys lost. And he called his son Saul and said, Saul, I want you to get a servant and go hunt for those donkeys and find them. And they did. They took their rations and their bag and they went everywhere almost. They went to Ephraim. They went to the hills. They went here and they went there and they were looking for those donkeys and they couldn't find those donkeys anywhere. I think their supplies was run out. And so Saul said to his servant, you know what, we probably need to go home. I think my he forgot about the donkeys and he's worrying about us. But here's what his servant said to Saul. Let me read it to you. And this is in 1 Samuel chapter 9, verse 6. So it says, and he said to him, look now, there is in this city a man of God, and he is an honorable man. And all that he says surely comes to pass. So let us go there. Perhaps he can show us the way that we should go. I tell you what, Saul was blessed to have a servant like this. This guy was a wise servant. And you know what? He gave great advice. What was his advice? He says, let's see the man of God. You know what? We shouldn't seek advice from the godless and from the ungodly. The Bible tells us that we shouldn't seek counsel from the ungodly. And I think people do. If you want really advice, call a godly person and get the advice. And that's what the advice. And you know what Saul said to his servant? He said, well said. He said, let's go ahead and go do that. I thought that was pretty cool that he gave the servant credit. And so they went and they saw these women coming out of the city going to get water. And so they stopped these women and they asked them if they knew where the man of God was. And you know what they said? They said yes. They said, if you'll go ahead and hurry up, he's right up there. If you'll go up there, he's ahead of you. And just as he's going into the city, you'll find him. Just go right ahead. So, of course, they're talking about Samuel. But here's the interesting thing about Samuel. God had already spoken to Samuel the day before. And God had told Samuel, he said, tomorrow, that would have been today, tomorrow, he said, about this time, I'm going to send you a young man from the tribe of Benjamin, and you're going to anoint him to be commander above all of his people. And not only that, but God said, and he'll be the one that'll lead our people and deliver us from the Philistine. So I thought that was really interesting. And God does things like that. You know, he works on two ends. He working on this end. At the same time, he'll be working on the other end. And when they come together, you just know that it's God doing that. Well, let's read our last verse that we have for today. And it's verse 17. And it's also in chapter 9 of 1 Samuel. So when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said to him, there he is, the man of God whom I spoke to you. This one shall reign over my people. Now, that's amazing, isn't it? So next time, we're going to see what Samuel does, and how he gets in contact with Saul, and how he anoints Saul as king. And we're going to see how the monarchy, you might say the monarchy, begins in the history of Israel. Well, that's all we've got for today. So we really appreciate you joining us, and hope you have a good week.